Yes, so I've come along today to talk about why Enfield are reviewing their council tax support scheme and why COVID has made an impact on that decision making. So if we just look at the next slide. So we want to make sure that the council tax support scheme is right for Enfield and its residents. So as a result of COVID, it's led to a real sharp increase in our council tax support caseload. So our caseload from April has increased by 2,000, and the amount of people claiming universal credit that are receiving council tax support has increased by 3,000. So we've had a sharp rise in people claiming, and it's cost us an extra £2.5 million since April, and that increase kind of came about very quickly over the first couple of months, really, up to the end of May. It's continued to increase, but it's kind of leveled off quite a lot. But we are expecting, obviously, due to changes in furlough, we're expecting to receive, to get another increase, and that's going to be down to people either returning to work, losing employment, or taking on lower paid jobs. So, we are expecting that change later on. Unlike what was spoken about before about people perhaps not taking up council tax support, in Enfield, we've got our policy is that if someone claims universal credit, we get notified about that, and that notification acts as a claim for council tax support automatically. So there's no extra claiming that somebody has to make if they're claiming universal credit. So in Enfield, our current council tax support scheme is very generous in the way it treats households who work and receive universal credit. So regardless of whether you're working or not, full council tax support is actually paid up to a earned income cap of £1,100 per month. If your net earnings are more than £1,100 per month, you won't get any council tax support. But if it's below that, you get full council tax support. And in Enfield, that means that you have to pay a minimum payment of 24.5%. But we have some working age that are protected against that payment, and that's due to disability and other criteria that we've got in our system. So what we started to notice is that some other local authorities have started to introduce banded schemes into their council tax support schemes, and we've recognised that there's definitely a need for us to do that, but mostly for universal credit. So some local authorities we noticed have introduced banded schemes for the whole of their working age, but we couldn't see the point of doing that for legacy benefits when we're still kind of processing housing benefit for most of them and asking for all of the evidence and information, and it's the best calculation you can get for somebody on council tax support. So we were looking at, could we have a banded scheme just for those on universal credit and for it to just affect those that are working. So we had difficulties in considering a move to an earned income banded scheme for universal credit. And our difficulties were the complexities of explaining some of those changes. And also it's coming at a time when more people are struggling financially as a result of COVID, and explaining the reasons for why we want to change. So, our reasons to change are because of fairness, because we recognise that their scheme's unfair at the moment, and it's to do with costs because, as I've said, we've had an increase in £2.5 million so far. Thanks, Janet. So how can we, what we looked at is, well, how can we sort of like look at what's going on in our caseload? How can we help explain those complexities? And because we've already worked with policy and practice in the past, we asked them if they could help us to model our proposed scheme. So we kind of looked at various different local authority schemes, and we found a model that we thought kind of suited Enfield, but we didn't know whether taking that scheme from another local authority, for instance, actually fitted our criteria at Enfield. So what we did is we got Policy and Practice to do some work for us. So what they did was they benchmarked our caseload and scheme against other local authorities, which helped highlight the differences for consideration. They reported on how much council tax support is awarded to those working on legacy benefits. So we could look at, well, what's happening with the legacy benefits that are working, and what's happening with those that are on universal credit working, so that we could compare what the awards were for people that were on similar levels of income, so that we could make, we could sort of see what was fair for universal credit. They also compared the level of council tax arrears for those groups to see if the scheme change for those working on universal credit would mean a potential for more council tax to be paid. So, it was really good to kind of get all of that information from Policy and Practice, and people that work in different local authorities. As you know, you come up with one model and you think, oh, what if something needs changing? So Policy and Practice were really good at reacting to us kind of saying, could you change it this way? What difference would this make? And they were always there as well to explain and answer any questions that we might have, questions that are raised by people perhaps that don't have that technical knowledge, and how we can explain that to help with the decision making. Thanks, Janet. So how have Policy and Practice helped us so far? So obviously we provide all our data to Policy and Practice, but they can provide a much deeper analysis of our data that we can't do in the local authority. And their data is also useful. They give us graphs and they highlight things that gives us that visualization, and it brings the kind of messages to life and helps with that decision making. They measured caseload costs data against other local authorities as well, which obviously we couldn't do in the local authority. So that highlights the differences in other local authorities, which has been really useful. Provided analysis of our data and comparisons against other local authorities. They confirmed that the current scheme that we operate at the moment was unfair, and they've helped us decide what changes were needed in detail to get fairness, which will also reduce the increased cost of council tax support as more households claim universal credit. So this is to protect us in the future. So what I thought would be quite useful to do is just to give you a bit of a case study really at Enfield and what we're proposing. Nothing's been agreed yet. This is just us looking at reviewing our scheme and proposing it. So from the work with Policy and Practice, we managed to get our bands looking a little bit like this below. So we considered how much somebody's earnings were, and we also considered different household types. So we've looked at, what would somebody's earned income band be if they were single, a couple, a family with one child, or a family with 2 or more children. And we've kind of set up different maximum awards of council tax support and what the minimum payment they would pay towards their council tax payment. Now I've highlighted something there at the moment because I'm going to show you what that band means if we modelled it against our legacy benefits at the moment, and if somebody went on to universal credit, which is the next slide. Okay, so I took a case study. So we're looking at a couple with one child on legacy benefits. At the moment, their earned income is £200 a week. Obviously, there's other income included in that. There's other income in our calculation for legacy benefits. So you've got child tax credit, working tax credit, etc. But on £200 earned income, this couple with one child was getting £12.06 a week, and their liability to pay council tax is £29.99 a week. So that means that their council tax support award over what they pay in council tax is 60% of the council tax. So the maximum CTS in this case is 40% of the liability. If we translated that into our current scheme and that person went on to universal credit, still on earned income of £200 a week, We're currently awarding £22.64 a week, very generous. So they're making that minimum payment of £24.5% of the council tax. If we take them and put them in our proposed scheme, so we've kind of modelled where those bands and percentages should be, that same person would then get a council tax support award of £13.50 a week, similar to the non-UC ones on legacy benefits. And that would mean that their maximum CTS would be 45% and their council tax that they pay would be 55%. So that's just showing how we've taken something, modelled it, and trying to get that fairness in our system. Thanks, Janet. That was a whistle-stop tour of what Enfield are doing, but that's the end of my presentation.